Welcome back to the Presumed Innocent Project. I'm James Fifelski. I'm so glad you joined me today. I want to talk about one key principle that I think is especially important for criminal defense attorneys who want to make sure that justice and due process and an equitable sense of justice is done for their clients and in the legal system. And it is this: how you handle the smallest of cases will be the same, if not similar, to the way you handle the largest of cases. The way that you handle the small things in life will be the same way that you handle the big things of life. If you neglect the small things in life, then you will neglect the big things in life. Think about this. If you have a client who has been cited for trespassing on his neighbor's property, and you think, oh, come on, it's not the biggest offense and you're not going to do any jail time. Just plead guilty, pay your fine, you'll be done. I've seen so many attorneys do that. Regardless of whether the client says, well, I didn't do it, or I had a good reason for going on my neighbor's property, so there was no bad intent, or there should not be a violation of the law here. I had some necessity to go onto the neighbor's property, for example. And if the attorney says, that's fine and good, but it's just a minor misdemeanor offense, just plead guilty, you're just going to have to pay a fine of a couple $100. You don't need to fight this. By telling our client that, when that person is telling us he's innocent, he didn't do this intentionally, or that there could be, in fact, a justifiable reason and a plausible defense, when we just blow that client off and say, just plead guilty, then we are more likely to do the same thing when a homicide case comes to us, when a client we are representing tells us, I didn't kill that person, or I did kill the person, but it was in the heat of passion, so I should have some defense, or at least reduction to manslaughter. We will be more inclined, if we abide by this principle, that the way we handle the small things in life will be the same way we handle the big things in life. We will more likely than not tell that client facing a very serious charge, listen, there's nothing you can do. That defense won't work. It's not something that this judge will approve, or if we go to trial with this judge, your sentence will only get worse. You tell your client essentially, you don't have a defense. There's nothing I can do for you. Just like you told the person that was charged with trespassing, you don't have a defense. There's nothing I could do for you. Just plead guilty and I'll make sure you just have a fine to pay. I've seen this time and time again in the legal system. I've had to check myself. Nobody's perfect, I get that. I've had to check myself and ask myself, when a less serious charge is encountered and I'm representing a client, am I doing the same type of work to defend and protect that client that I would do on a more serious charge, say homicide or armed robbery? What I've learned over many years of practice is that the way I do small things, the way I handle small cases, will be the same way I handle big cases. And sometimes that means I have a lot of extra work to do. And one example, I took a case where somebody was driving with a suspended license and got charged for that. Minor case, typically not a case somebody would go to jail for. But in this particular scenario, I saw that there was a strong defense because a major part of the statute was not fulfilled by the state agency for licensing. And there was a valid defense. And I won at one level, the prosecutor appealed. I won at another level, the prosecutor appealed. I won at the next level, the prosecutor appealed again. This case went all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. They denied cert. Unfortunately, the end result was the Supreme Court in my state shot down my argument. It was purely political. It was clear that because I had raised an issue that would have made it much harder to prove these cases, that actually would have affected thousands of other cases, as attested to by the state attorney general, who joined into the case in order to fight against my arguments, which had won at multiple levels up until the state's Supreme Court decision shooting it down. All of that for what I've seen most people say, it's just a minor misdemeanor, just plead guilty, there's nothing you can do. And I interrupted a whole system, and it was because I dealt the same way with a small case as I did a large case. Ultimately, it forced the hand of the legislature to change the statute because my interpretation of the law was actually correct, but it was undone for political reasons. And so the key here is do small things the same way you want to do big things. If you want to be a criminal defense attorney who takes on a high-profile case and gets amazing results, then start working at doing the same thing with small cases. Because just like an athlete who treats a local competition the same way as the Olympics, they're going to do better than their competition because they're so focused on their goal. They're so focused on hard work. They're so focused not so much on whether this is an important event, but just doing the best, harnessing their potential and growing that potential to get better and better and better. Because part of it is taking on the challenge of something new. If we don't take on the challenge in order to overcome it or to grow or somehow learn something new through that challenge, then we will not take something new away from that makes us a better attorney. And therefore we'll be left even less capable, less equipped when the serious case comes our way. Every case that we handle, every person we represent as defense attorneys and any other kind of attorney has the ability to help make us better attorneys. And there's a lot less pressure when it's a smaller case. There's a lot less to lose than if someone is charged with homicide and could end up in prison the rest of their lives. So it's a perfect time for us to really dial in our own potential, to grow, to learn, to refine our skills, to become better at what we do. But if we don't take that opportunity to do so with the small cases, and we're going to continue to settle, we're going to continue to accept mediocre results, or just good enough, or I just need to do enough to close this file and make sure nothing terrible happens, like my client goes to jail for a trespass charge. And we lose the opportunity that is hidden within that case to actually become much better at what we do and much more capable of handling more serious cases. One of the greatest tragedies that I've discovered in researching individuals who have had their charges dismissed and cases exonerated from after years in prison are those cases where the defense attorney actually pushed a plea on the client. Instead of finding ways to defend the case, especially when a client continues to proclaim his or her innocence. I didn't do this. No, I didn't. It's a false allegation. Despite whatever the odds seem to be or how much evidence is stacked against that, if you have a client who's proclaiming his or her innocence, it's so vital to hear that, to listen to then harness that and find ways to properly defend the case, not push a bad plea agreement on someone just because it seems like the only option. But unfortunately, I think this simple principle is at work in those attorneys who push bad plea agreements, which ultimately get undone through the exoneration progress by other attorneys who are effectively sharpening their skills and honing their talent, and in doing that even with small cases, the same way as they would with big cases. So to help eliminate wrongful convictions, to help make sure that every person charged with a crime who's represented by a criminal defense attorney is given a chance at true justice, we have to really begin by just engaging in this simple process of doing the small things well, better, progressing in the small cases so that we're much more effective and equipped to handle the big cases where there's so much more at stake. This is my tip for the day. I hope it's helpful. If you like this, please like or share or pass on to someone else, and maybe they'll subscribe. I want to be a voice for justice reform in criminal defense, and I want to help other criminal defense attorneys level up their practice and tap into the power of the presumption of innocence. I hope this served you. I hope you have a great day. Go empower your practice.